Hey guys, this is Market Update. So I think the most positive, most bullish possible scenario for crypto happened this week, right? Over the last 4 years, the industry has been choked to death by the US government. Every top project sued directly by the US government, right? Coinbase, Kraken, Crypto.com, Binance, Uniswap, many others called securities, etc. All of that's going to change. You had banks in the US, totally normal banks, totally fine, ended overnight because they had crypto customers. All of that is out the window. Now the industry can flourish, be invested in, money can move in, all of that nonsense out the way. So this is the best news for crypto as an industry. If you hold coins, you just have to love this. On election day, Stand With Crypto tracked 355 pro-crypto candidates. 75% of them have won already. This is Brian Armstrong from Coinbase. Crypto supporting Bernie Moreno is a key factor in his victory over Sherrod Brown. Sherrod was one of the most anti-crypto senators out there. Crypto got the full-throated support of the winning presidential candidate. The country fully repudiated the work of Warren and Gensler. Gensler will be out of there at the SEC. Brilliant news. These people do not deserve to be there trying to suffocate innovation and a new industry. It is the best news we could have possibly had. Now, when you look at how prices are reacting, it's all kind of the US-based stuff that's getting bid up, right? Ethereum can now get bid up because lots of activity there, and that can continue. You have Solana, even Cardano, US founder. It's not really US-based, but yeah, US founder getting bid up, one of the best performers this week. Uniswap and Aave have done well for DeFi, right, and some others. So it's the best news that we could possibly have had. Just a fair shake, fair regulation, right? And then you can let this industry flourish. Investment can flow in for the medium and long term. It's the best news ever. Short term, we are right in that crazy period where Bitcoin usually goes berserk into a bull market. It's hard to be bearish. There are some things to worry about, but you just have to look on balance where we are in the macro cycle and everything. It's very, very good news overall for this industry. So prices should be at all-time highs, which they are. I think they go much higher here. If you do trade crypto, $30,000 deposit bonus to Bybit, it's the exchange I use, down in the description below. Just click that link. You can go through, make a deposit and trade. I'll also be updating the crypto course this weekend with my latest updates. If you've got the course already, the videos will be listed in the private Discord server, so you can go ahead and watch them. Just some updates on my portfolio, where we are in the current cycle and what I'm thinking of in terms of how long it will last and maybe the prices we'll get to. Should we take profits here? Should we buy? Many people have been asking for those videos, so I'm going to be making them, as well as some other analysis, which I think is really important. So if you don't have the course yet, I'll link it below, but you can go and see the videos, gets updated for free over time. So I want to contrast a long-term and a short-term chart here. I think the whole entire game is that the demographics in the West are not conducive to real free market economic growth and wealth creation, because we have aging populations that humanity essentially needs more young people coming in, paying for the old people and their social security. Trump has said he wants to cut taxes, but if you look at spending, and apparently Elon Musk wants to cut $2 trillion in spending. Most of the spending is social security, Medicaid, Medicare, net interest, military. You're not going to cut any of that. All right, and Trump has said he's not going to cut any of that. So what are you going to cut? Most of the deficit is just those things, and then they're not bringing in the tax receipts. So maybe they said, well, maybe they can use some of the raw minerals and oil and gas, and they can sell that into the world. Who's going to pay for it, right? What are you going to accept? So I think this is pretty much going to continue. Hopefully they can make a small dent in the fiscal deficit and make it a little bit smaller. But in any case, demographics can't change unless you're importing lots of people, but they're saying they're not going to import people anymore. They're actually going to export people. So the labor force participation rate has been trending lower, and the US government debt to GDP has been trending along with that upwards. This is inverted. What that means is, as the economy, the free market economy tends to slow down as it becomes older and the demographics aren't great, you're not growing the number of humans fast enough to actually make GDP be positive, right? And so we won't get into GDP, it's a ridiculous metric, but if you want GDP to be positive, you don't need the same amount of people making stuff. You actually need more people. Because if the same amount of people make stuff, every day we go and we invent ways to make that stuff cheaper, and we would actually reduce or disinflate prices. The way you get positive GDP is if you have more human beings creating and consuming. In any case, so you have not really a growth in population, so disinflating economy and prices. That's not good for the financial system, which will collapse in on itself if that happens. So what you get is either the government or the central bank just trying to get inflation and GDP higher around 2% to their target. The problem is it's requiring shed loads of debt to do this, and the governments are becoming very, very indebted, right? Over 100% debt to GDP, right? It's not good. So the way that you try and slow that down and prevent a fiscal spiral, because the net interest is now, I think, like the second line item in the expenditures, right? That's not good, right? You can't cut net interest, right? So what are you gonna do? What they try to do is they want their blended interest rate that they're paying on the debt below the real rate of inflation. As long as that's happening, then it's called financial repression. You're paying less interest on the government debt than the inflation of goods and services, and so you're making that debt appear cheaper over time. That slows everything down, right? Gives them time. Unfortunately, anyone holding that debt is getting wrecked. That's why you have to be out of the fiat currency into assets. And I think Bitcoin's the best play here for that. Fed net liquidity over time. So eventually, the government creates the debt, makes sure that the economy tries to bumble along above 2%, right? But eventually they need to make sure that the interest payments are getting paid off a little bit. So the Fed essentially prints money and puts liquidity into markets to make sure that market prices are moving higher above the blended interest rate. That's why the Fed is cutting interest rates on the short end right now, even though inflation isn't below its target. They are saying, essentially, the government, the US government, many other central banks right now are in a cutting cycle because it's about time for them to refinance all of their debts. And they need the lowest possible blended interest rate on their debt, despite inflation. They need and require inflation. When they say we don't want inflation, that's a complete lie. They need and require it. And they need their blended interest rate to be below that. That's the game. Don't be part of that game. Do not play their game. Do not pay for all of their profligate spending. You have to be out. If you want to protect yourself against that, you have to be in assets. That's where it's going. That's the long term. Short term, like I said, I think we're in the cutting cycle where governments need to refinance, need the lowest possible interest rate. And what that means is assets know exactly what's happening, and they know that inflation is occurring right now. And all the inflation data is lagging. The market prices in what's happening in the future. So what we know is they're cutting rates, they want to refinance, and they want inflation to debase the debt away. And so markets are pricing it in, and that's a bull market. Markets, when the inflation occurs in 12 months' time, they'll start pricing in the next 12 months, which is when central banks have to pretend that they're raising rates and trying to slow inflation again. But that's not right now. Short term, you can see we're in one of those cycles where we're on the upswing. You can see that right here as we've crossed through. These cycles are central bank cycles of currency debasement. We're coming into a decent part of the cycle right now. And we had great specific positive news for crypto. So it's a good outlook. There is a lot to worry about on the macro side, but bull markets take place nonetheless because we're valuing these assets in the fiat currency, which I think is going through a debasement phase right now.